Good evening, everybody. We welcome you all to this session on how to prepare contestants for a spelling bee by Dr. Elaine Nicholton. Dr. Elaine has nearly 30 years of experience in dictionary, reference, and education publishing and has held various roles during her career. She has experience of teaching English as a foreign language at secondary school level and first year university level, having taught in Sorbonne in Paris. Dr. Elaine has been involved in several Collins Spelling Bee competitions around the world, most notably Times Spelling Bee competition in the UK from 2010 to 2012. So, without taking any more time, I would like to request Dr. Elaine to take charge of the session. Dr. Elaine, all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sumit. Thank you very much for joining me this evening, and I hope everybody enjoys this. So, as Sumit said, I've been involved in lots of spelling bee competitions on behalf of Collins. So a lot of what I'm talking about today has been driven by my experiences adjudicating competitions and doing workshops for teachers to help them prepare their students for a competition. So this is basically what we're going to try and cover today. And if we don't get through all of this, don't worry, because we will be posting this manual on our home learning site for you all to access and download at your leisure after the workshop. So we're not going to worry too much about trying to get through everything. We're going to focus on the first key things, which is when to ask for definitions and examples, when to ask for parts of speech, and how asking where a word comes from can help with spelling. And that's what we're going to really focus on today, and the rest will all be in your manual. So here are some suggested resources, depending on the level that you're teaching at, if you're a teacher, depending on the level of your child, if you're a parent, and the competition that you may be entering for. These are some good spelling bee resources that you might want to look at. Collins Spell Like a Champion is available from Amazon in India. I checked this morning. Just some basics. We use the International Phonetic Alphabet to represent sounds, and IPA symbols are always given between slanting brackets. I'm going to be using some of these symbols in this presentation this afternoon, but I will explain them as I go. But I want you to be careful not to confuse the International Phonetic Alphabet symbolic representation of the spelling with the grapheme, the letters that we use from the English alphabet that show how the sound is spelled in the alphabet. So I've given you the sound as an example. The grapheme is F in the word fish, but the grapheme for the sound in the word rough is GH. So we need to be very careful not to confuse the two. Right, so when do we ask for questions? So we're going to think first of all about asking for definitions. Now, people who set spelling bee competitions, and I am one of them, are very, very sneaky. We're trying to catch competitors out. And one of our favourite sets of words to set for spelling are homophones. Homophones, as you know, are words that sound the same that are spelled differently. Now, a lot of homophones are very easy. Die, die, tide, tide. But some of them are tricky and are fair game in spelling bee competitions. Look at floor, floor. Look at palette, 3 different spellings depending on the meaning. And look at peak, 4 different spellings depending on the meaning. So some of these homophones are fair game. So if a competitor is asked to spell a word that he or she suspects might be a homophone, they must ask for the definition to get clarification. If the spellmaster says your word is peak and they spell P-E-A-K, if the word is peak, meaning offence or anger, then they've spelled the wrong word. So it's very, very important to ask for a definition if you suspect the word you're being asked to spell is a homophone. It's also really important to ask for the definition if you're not entirely sure you've heard the word correctly, or if it's got an ending on it, like ENT or ENCE or ANCE. A-N-C-Y, A-N-T. I've been in situations adjudicating where we have said to the competitor, your word is decadent, and the competitor has spelled decadence because they just didn't hear the final sound in the word. So if there's any doubt in your mind, if the word has an ending of this type, which can be confused with a very close similar ending, ask for the definition to make sure that you get the word right. So I would really strongly recommend that. Some competitors can be overconfident. And if they're overconfident, they're so eager to spell, they may spell before they've fully understood what the word is. The next reason to ask for a definition is if the word sounds like another word and could be confused. So think about device and devise. The only difference in sound there is the z. Emit and omit, precede, proceed, and desert, desert, desert. If a word sounds close to another word, ask for the definition to make sure you spell the correct one. If the word has a close and confusable pair, lots of dictionaries have lists of commonly confused words in them. If you know that a word can be easily confused with a similar word, ask for the definition. Accept, accept, elude, elude. These are all really good reasons for asking for the definition to make sure you're absolutely clear about the word you've been asked to spell. If the word is unfamiliar to you, ask for the definition because there might be clues in the definition which can help you work out the spelling. So in a competition in St. Lucia a couple of years ago, we gave a young lady competitor the word aqualung to spell. And she hadn't heard this word before, she was unfamiliar with it. But her teacher had done some work on combining forms and some preparation, and the young lady asked for the definition and thought about it. An aqualung is breathing apparatus used by divers consisting of a mouthpiece attached to air cylinders strapped to the back. And you could almost see the young lady, the young competitor thinking, breathing must be something to do with lungs. So the word's aqualung, so the last bit's lung. And then she understood, she didn't know the word aqualung, but she'd studied the word aquarium. So she knew from what her teacher had told her that AQUA is water. So she was able to apply what she knew, use the definition, and come up with the correct spelling in a competition. So if the word is completely unfamiliar, there are often clues in the definition which can help. They won't give you the answer, but if you think about the clue in the definition, it can be very helpful. So if I was to ask you to spell the word miliary, which is a very archaic word now, the first thing we would do would be to say, what's the definition? And this is the definition. Relating to or marking a distance equal to an ancient Roman mile of 1,000 paces. So that word 1,000 gives us a clue to the milli at the beginning. And then if we know about suffixes, we can add ARY, and we have an opportunity. We've got a fair stab at spelling the word correctly because the definition is giving us a clue. Add the clue in the definition with what we know about how words are formed, and we have a chance. So these are some of the reasons why we might ask for a definition. Asking for an example sentence can also be helpful, but I always recommend asking for the definition first because there is more help in the definition than in the example sentence. Sometimes if you ask for the definition, if it's a homophone, it will always be helpful. If you're not sure you've heard the word correctly, an example can be helpful, but the definition is probably your go-to question. If you think the word is confused with another word or could be confused with another word, I would always recommend asking for the definition first, but asking for the example can also be helpful. And if the word is unfamiliar to you, you definitely want the definition, but you definitely want the example, but ask for the definition first. And if you didn't understand the definition, if the definition had words in that you didn't understand, so going back to miliary, it's quite specialist, it's to do with ancient Rome, the example sentence might give you a little bit more information that will help you with clues to the spelling. But really, the definition is the go-to question if there's any doubt in your mind about what you've been asked to spell. It's helpful to ask for the part of speech, but again, it's unusual that the part of speech gives you extra information, but it's good to ask for the part of speech. So sometimes the part of speech can help with homophones. So if you look at alter, alter meaning to change is a verb. Altar, meaning the table in a church where the priest stands, that's a noun. So if you're told your word is altar, you ask for the part of speech will help you there. Practice, exactly the same pronunciation, but the S spelling is the verb and the C spelling is the noun. So again, asking for the part of speech will help you there. Bury, as in bury a body in the ground, is a verb. Berry, as in strawberry, raspberry, and other types of berries, is a noun. So again, part of speech can be helpful. And father is another example. So ask for the definition first and then ask for the part of speech would always be my advice. And normally in a competition, you can ask as many of these questions as you want. So you could ask for the definition and the example and the part of speech and where the word comes from. All of those are tools that you have to allow you to demonstrate spelling skill. Now, I'm often asked about how does asking where a word come from, sorry, just one more thing. Commonly confused pairs, the part of speech can be helpful too. Right. So I'm often asked, how does asking where the word come from help with the spelling? And it's very tricky. The history of English is long and complex and difficult. And sometimes understanding where a word comes from can give us a clue to how it is spelled. It's not an exact science because there will be exceptions. And the etymology can only give us a clue. It's not going to give us the complete answer. So we would use the etymology information, where the word comes from, possibly with information that we already know about, combining forms and suffixes and prefixes and perhaps the definition. But it is a clue. And it's very important when you're preparing for a spelling bee competition that you prepare as much as you can using the dictionary that's going to be used for that competition, because different dictionaries give different levels of information about where words come from, and you need to become familiar with what the competition dictionary is going to be telling you. You need to be careful as well, because the spelling of words can change as they're passed through languages and over time. And detailed etymologies in a spelling list, in a spelling competition, might be confusing and unhelpful. And a dictionary might give you the immediate etymology and not go right back to the original language. And here's a good example. So the word choir, which I know is a common word and everybody will be able to spell, has the rather unusual CH grapheme for the sound K. So if you hear this word, you might think, I'll ask where it comes from. And many dictionaries say this word is from Latin chorus, which is correct. But not all dictionaries will also tell you that Latin borrowed the word from Greek. And the clue here is that words that have the sound K spelled with CH are nearly all from Greek. So if your dictionary in a competition only says Latin, it's not going to give you all of the information that you need. So you really need, if you want to try and use this information, you've got to try and get familiar with what your dictionary does and what it doesn't do. And you need to be really careful with this. And fuller etymologies, which you get in many dictionaries, in a competition environment can be very unhelpful. For example, orange, which everybody can spell. I know it's not a difficult word, but look at how complicated that etymology is. English got it from Old French, which got it from Old Provençal, which is a language spoken in the south of France, which got it from Arabic, probably coming up through Spain, which got it from Persian, which got it from Sanskrit, which is probably of Dravidian origin. So that's unhelpful in a spelling bee competition. And it would be up to the organisers whether they say Old French or Old Provençal or Arabic or Persian or Sanskrit or Dravidian or all of those. So you have to be really careful with this information. Having said that, there are some clues, and that's what we're going to look at, some of the easiest clues for us to get our heads around without being academic linguists who've studied the history of the language. Clue number one, unfamiliar words that have the sound in it. So you see that I've got the IPA there for the sound. There are three ways of spelling the sound in English. The letter F, as in fish, the letters GH, as in rough or tough, and the letters PH. Now, nearly all words in English that have the sound spelled with PH are from Greek. So you're in a competition and the word you're given to spell is phagocyte, and you think, oh, never heard of that. The first thing you do is ask for the definition. Then you say, where's it from? And they will tell you it's from Greek. And that tells you that the sound at the beginning of the word is spelled PH and not F. So it's a very useful tool for the PH spelling of the sound. And if alternatively, on the other hand, you hear a very unusual word, farinaceous, and you think, oh, how do I spell that? Again, ask for the definition and then ask where it comes from. And they will say Latin. And that is your clue that it is not spelled PH, it is spelled with an F. So, unusual words that contain the sound, ask where they're from, because if the adjudicator says Greek, that's a clue that it's probably PH. If the adjudicator says Latin or French or German, that's probably a clue that it's F and not PH. So it can be quite helpful asking where words come from when you've got the F sound in an unfamiliar word. Okay, next clue. Unfamiliar words containing the sound sh. That symbol there, that elongated S, is the symbol for the sound sh, which has got lots of different spellings in English. SH being the most common grapheme, as in shout or shenanigan. However, some words have this sound spelled with the grapheme CH, and all of them are from French. So if you're in a competition and you're asked to spell the word chalet, and you think, oh, I've not heard that before, I expect it's SH, don't do that. Ask where it comes from, and they will tell you French. And that immediately tells you that that sh is spelled CH and not SH. So that's another really good clue. All of the words in English that have the sound sh spelled with CH are from French. So that, as I say, is another really nice clue. Here's another one. There are a group of words in English that have a silent P at the beginning. Psychology, psychedelic, psalm, psyche, psyllium, which is a type of grain, psoriasis, which is a skin condition. All of these words are from Greek. So if you're asked to spell a word that is unfamiliar to you, that starts with the sound S, it's worth asking where it's from, because if the answer is Greek, there might be a silent P at the beginning of that word. So if you're in a competition and they say your word is psyllium, ask where it comes from, because it's got a P at the beginning that is silent. And the other thing you'll notice is that silent P is followed by the spelling S for the sound S, not C. So that's another trick, another clue, another way where the word comes from gives us a clue to the spelling. Here's another one to be aware of. The sounds I and I, these two vowel sounds. So the little square I, the first one is I, and then the A followed by the it sound is I, as in die, cry, and fish. These sounds in English are mostly spelled with the grapheme I. So two different sounds, one spelling. That's just how English works. However, we need to be aware that sometimes these sounds are spelled with a Y. So chrysalis, cyclical, pyramid, asylum, pylon, hygiene. All of these words are from Greek. So if you hear an unusual word with it or I in the sound, it's worth asking where the word comes from. Because if the answer is Greek, that it or I sound may be spelled with a Y. That's another clue that understanding where the word comes from gives you to the spelling. Next one. Unfamiliar words containing the sound K. Again, several different ways of spelling the sound K in English. C, the grapheme C, the letter C, is the most common. So for cake, cake, let's just use cake as an example. There are a group of words that have the sound K spelled with CH, chrysanthemum, chrysalis, choir that we looked at earlier on, chasm, chronology, charisma, anchor. All of these words are from Greek. So if you're asked to spell a word that is unfamiliar to you, that has the sound K in it, ask where it comes from, because if the answer is Greek, that K is probably spelled with CH and not C and not K. So a word like archaic is from Greek. A-R-C-H with a K sound, A-I-C. So think about that sound K. You've been asked to spell a word with the sound K in, ask where it comes from. The answer Greek is a clue that it's probably CH. But you need to be careful because, as I said, not all dictionaries might go back to the original Greek, and I've got choir here as the example. So the clue is that it's Greek that gives us K spelled CH, not Latin. And you might not get that, so we do need to be careful. And there are words from Greek with the sound K that do not use the CH spelling. And this goes back to the Greek alphabet. And I'm not going to go into that here because that brings us into a whole new alphabet. But these words come from a different letter of the Greek alphabet. So cataclysm, which is from Greek, is spelled with a C, and kaleidoscope, which is Greek, is spelled with a K. And we can sometimes find words from Latin that have CH for the spelling K as well, inchoate. But it's a useful clue. The chances are, if it's an unusual word and it's from Greek and it's got the sound K in it, and you're stuck for how to spell it, it's a safe bet to go for CH if it's completely unfamiliar. But it's not completely 100% a rule. Also with the sound K, ask where it comes from. If the answer is Japanese and not Greek, then it's probably spelled with the letter K, kimono, koi, type of fish, karate. If the answer is Arabic, then it could be a Q with no U following it, as in Qibla or Kanat, or it could also be a K, as in Qibla. Arabic is difficult because with its script, it can be transliterated in different ways in English. So some people use Q with no U, some people use K. But if you're asked to spell an unfamiliar word with the sound K in, ask where it comes from, because the etymology will give you a clue to the spelling of that sound. Some words from French have the sound K spelled with QU, quiche, key, Q. But we need to be careful with this because the QU grapheme also represents the sound qu in words from Old French, French and Latin, queen, quick, quintessential. So if they say French, it might be QU, it might not be. We have to be a bit careful with this information. But it's still nevertheless a very valuable clue. So, and we also need to watch out from words from other languages, which will probably be spelled with the sound K. So kumquat, which is from Cantonese, a dialect of Chinese, is spelled with a Q. Kiang is spelled with a Q. Kulang is spelled with a Q. Kafir is spelled with a Q. Kuni Kuni from Maori is also spelled with a Q. Anybody want to tell me what a kiang is? Let's have a do a little job for me here while I have some water to drink. What's a kiang? Anybody know? Use the chat box. Should we count any answers?
Yes, I'm looking for some answers on both the platforms.
I'll give you I'll tell you. Any answers?
Waiting again for answers.
Okay. A kiang.
Yeah.
A kiang is a type of wild ass in Tibet. Okay. What about a kulan? Anybody know what a kulan is?
Someone is given a posthumous answer, an animal for kiang.
Actually, yeah. A kulan is also a wild ass, but in Central Asia. So we think the words are related, but they've come into English differently. Kafir, what's kafir?
Afghanistan ass. Okay. Someone has given an answer, drink.
Yes, a fermented milk drink. Excellent. And what about a kuni kuni from New Zealand? If you were in New Zealand on holiday and somebody said, oh, watch out that kuni kuni, what would you do? What is a kuni kuni? Any ideas?
Someone says it's a domestic pig. I don't know if they're answering you.
It's a wild pig. It's a wild pig. Yeah. Someone's been Googling and looking that up, but it's a wild pig.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. And I've got here some miscellaneous tips on some other clues. So we know that there are lots of words in English that have the sound n spelled with the grapheme or the digraph KN, which have a silent K at the beginning. Knee, knife, knack, knob. If you suspect there might be a silent K at the beginning of a word, ask where it's from. If the answer is Old English, Middle English, or Saxon or Dutch, there might be a silent K at the front. That's where these words tend to come from. There aren't very many of them, and they're fairly common, unlikely to be used in a spelling bee competition. You do need to watch out for words with a silent G at the beginning, because these are slightly more unusual and a fair game for people like me who set spelling bee word lists. Again, the sound N might have a silent G at the beginning, so we've got the grapheme or digraph GN to represent N at the beginning of a word like gnarled. And a lot of these words are also from early Germanic dialects such as Saxon or Dutch, or Old English or Middle English. But be careful, because gnome, which also has a silent G at the front, and gnosis and are from Greek, and nu is from the African language Xhosa. So sometimes understanding where the word comes from, it might be a little bit of a clue. So if you're asked to spell the word gnarly, you might think, oh, where's that from? And they'll say Old English, and that's a little bit of a clue that there might be a G at the beginning, a silent G at the front. Or if you're asked to spell gnosis, and you think, oh, and you get the definition, and you say, where's it from? And they say Greek, that is a clue that there's a silent G at the front. So these are clues. They're not hard and fast, but they are helpful clues, things you can think about in a competition. We have lots of words in English that start with the sound R, but that are spelled with silent W at the beginning, wretched. These are mostly also from Old English, Middle English, Saxon, Dutch. There are some very common words, so they would tend not to be used in high-level competitions, but they're often used in competitions with younger children. Very common words that start with the sound were spelled WH with a silent H. So wheat, white, wheat, which, what. These are also Old English or Middle English, but you need to be careful, there are exceptions. Whack seems to derive from the word thwack, which has an uncertain etymology and may be to do with how the word sounds relating to meaning. So there are clues here which we can help younger, particularly for younger students who maybe are being given easier words to spell in their competition. Words from Italian often have a silent letter H in them to show that the preceding G or C makes the hard G or K sound before the letters E and I. So for example, words that you'll be very familiar with, spaghetti, that H there is telling us that the G is G, not J. Because normally if you think about GE in English, it says J, like gem. But no, it's spaghetti. So watch out for the silent H's in Italian words. The second word can either be said bruschetta or bruschetta. If the spellmaster in a competition says spell bruschetta, ask where it comes from. Italian, there's an H in there. Chiaroscuro is from Italian, and ghetto is Italian. Words from Italian often have doubled letters, but you won't be able to hear where. So embarrass, which is a great word in a spelling competition because everybody confuses the number of R's and S's, is from Italian. Latte, cappuccino, pizza, mozzarella, all of these words are from Italian, which is a clue that could be a double letter in there. But watch out, because look at cappuccino, double P, double C, one N. You can't hear where, but the answer Italian is a clue to think about double letters, double consonants in a word. The sound ch, mostly spelled with the letters CH, the grapheme CH, as in the word cheese or check or champion. So mostly spelled CH, but if the word is from Greek, from Chinese, it might be spelled with QI. So, for example, Qi, vital energy, and Qigong, which is a system of synchronizing breathing and exercise. So it's worth asking, if it's an unfamiliar word with the sound ch at the beginning, ask where it comes from, just in case. And also, tchotchke, which means a trinket, is from Yiddish, and we have the sound ch spelled TCH twice in that word. So if it's an unfamiliar word with the sound ch at the beginning or in it, ask, because if they say Chinese, you need to think about QI. If they say something like Yiddish or Hebrew or Russian, you might want to think about TCH, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Could be CH. Tricky area. But ask where it comes from. Think about what they tell you as an answer to see if it's got a clue in it. Because if you say, can I have the definition of a word? And they say, it's a system of breathing and exercise popular in China. and you then say, where does the word come from? And they say Chinese. That's a very good clue put together that it's probably QI for the ch spelling. So we can put information together. So as I said, if you're asked to spell the word qigong, there might be information in the definition that helps. And when you put that together with information from where the word comes from, you can put the two together and it gives you really good clues to spelling. So thinking about this word, aquafaba, which is water in which chickpeas and soybeans have been cooked and is used in vegan cookery as a substitute for egg whites. If in a competition you're asked to spell a word like aquafaba, and you ask for the definition, so it's got the clue water in it, so that gives you a clue to aqua, which is a very common combining form for water in words in English, aqua. And then if you've done some studying and looking, you might understand that faba is Latin for bean. If you don't understand that, if you just get the definition and say, where does the word come from? They'll say it's Latin. It's telling you that the second element, faba, starts with F and not PH. So it's given you two clues that you can put together to have a go at spelling the word. And here's another one, navicular. Oh, where's it come? What does it mean? It's shaped like a boat. Boat is a clue that it might be related to the word navy, N-A-V-Y. Navicular is Latin, not Greek. So that's a clue that the k in navicular is C, not CH or K. So you can put clues together to start to build up spelling for unusual words in a competition. So you can study all of this, but you need to be able to apply the information that you've got in a competition. So it's not just about memorizing and learning, it's about applying skills, metacognitive skills. Okay, great. So I'm going to do some practice, and what I want you to type in for me is the question that you would ask if you were given this word to spell in a spelling competition. I don't want the spelling of the word. I want the question that you ask, okay? So the first word is vain. What do you ask? You're in a competition, your word, Shrikant, is vain. What do you ask? Not necessarily Shrikant, but anybody. What do you ask? What's the first thing you ask? Any answers?
Looking for answers. Which language is it from?
That's not going to help you.
Definition.
Definition. Absolutely. Vain could be any of these three words.
Someone is saying etymology.
No, you want the definition. It's a homophone. These are very common homophones. Next one, choreography. What do you ask if your word is choreography?
Spelling. Its origin again.
Its origin, because it's from Greek, which tells you it's got CH at the beginning. What about fistula? Your word is fistula. What do you ask?
Again, origin of the word.
Yep, because that is a clue that it's F at the beginning and not PH. What about this next word? Waste.
Waste. Someone says etymology, meaning, and definition.
Definition. It has to be the definition. The etymology won't help you here because it's a homophone. You have to ask for the definition. What about this next word? Nice. You need to ask two questions. Nice.
Okay. The origin.
Yes. And?
Parts of speech.
Yes. And?
Definition.
Definition. You must ask for the definition because it's a homophone. And you need, in this case, you also need the origin to give you a clue to that silent G at the front. They'll tell you it's Greek. So as we looked at when we were looking at gnome and gnosis, that G at the beginning is silent because it's from Greek. But you must also ask for the definition. You don't want to confuse it. Nice, it's a type of rock. You don't want to confuse a type of rock with a word to describe someone who's pleasant. Next word is phytogenesis. You want two questions. Two questions you could ask here.
The first question, okay, we're getting answers. The first question is definition and the second origin. However, there is one person who says spellings.
Well, you can't ask for the spelling in a competition because you've been asked to spell. So yes, you ask for the definition and they tell you it is to do with the origin of plants. And if you've done any work studying combining forms, you'll know that phyto is to do with plants and that genesis is to do with the origin and the beginning of things. And the etymology Greek tells you that it's pH and also that it's Y. So yes, so for a word like phytogenesis, you need the definition to give you some clues, and then you need the origin to give you the pH and the Y in that spelling. Next word, meat. What do we ask?
Definition.
Definition. How many homophones does meat have? Type them in for me.
Okay, looking for answers. M-E-A-T. M-E-E-T.
Yep. And?
Looking for the third.
M-E-T-E, as in meet out.
Okay,
Justice
someone has just
somebody.
given M-A-T. Yes.
Yeah, so we have, so meat, we're going to think M-E-A-T, M-E-E-T. Not in this case. You've been asked to spell M-E-T-E. So we must ask for the definition. Next one, kibbutz. What do we ask? Kibbutz.
Origin.
Yeah,
Origin.
Origin. The origin is a good one here because it's Yiddish again, I believe, or Hebrew. So that's a clue that k sound at the beginning is a K and not a CH or a C. What about this next one? Fidelity.
Origin.
Origin. That's another one where we have the first sound spelled with F. It's from Latin. And last one, pedal.
Pedal is definition. It's hovering between definition and origin. So.
Yes. We've got two possible pedals, pedal and pedal. So pedal meaning to sell or to hawk around, and pedal, a pedal on a bike or pedaling the bike really hard. So you can see that asking for the definition is really, really helpful. And that you can also see that don't think that you're going in for a spelling competition and it's going to be a hard competition and everybody's 17 or 18 or 14 or something. Don't think all of the homophones in English are easy and you won't be asked to spell one. Don't think that for a minute. Look at number 5. That's a really hard word. That's a really unusual word. It's a homophone. It's fair game in a spelling competition. And if you're going into a competition with younger children, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, younger, there will be homophones in there. If I was setting a competition, I would put homophones in. I've got a list of about 500, including some very unusual ones, and I think they're fair game because for me, spelling is about skills and not just about what you can memorize. Okay, so I'll skip these because this is just the answers to that, so that will all be in your version of the manual that we'll be giving you. So those are when you ask for the key questions. Are there any questions from you, the audience, arising from that before I go on to some essential preparation?
So looking for questions here on both the platforms. However, we do acknowledge that the questions on Facebook will come a little late.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I'll carry on then. So these are the things that you need to practice and revise before the competition. The first thing is spelling rules. I'm not going to go through them here, but you need to know your spelling rules and you need to know the exceptions. Okay, so I before E except after C, and learn protein, C's and vein that are all exceptions. You need to know where I, S, E and I, Z, E are interchangeable and where some words can only be spelled one way and which words these are. Revise these before the competition. These are all fair game. Anybody setting a spelling bee competition is going to put words like this in to trick you, to try and catch you out. You must revise them. Silent E is dropped when an ending that begins with a vowel is added. Revise this. But it's kept when you're adding, it's kept at the ends of words ending in CE or GE. Change, changeable, notice, noticeable. Revise this. Revise the doubling of a consonant when you're adding an ending with the stress at the end. Revise all of these spelling rules. Revise how we form adverbs. Revise all of the suffixes. When you've got OUS and ARY, the U is dropped. So revise all of this. When you've got a word like mimic or picnic and you're adding a verb ending, you also add a K to keep the hard sound. Revise all of this. You need to go through and revise all of these. Certain short adjectives that end in Y, the LY is added after the Y. You're not changing it to I. Revise all of these basic spelling rules. Basic spellings for plurals, slightly trickier plurals, unusual plurals, even more unusual plurals. That X on the end of gatto is silent. You must be revising these. So if you're asked in a spelling competition to spell the word gatto, ask for the definition and they will define it as a singular noun, so you know you don't put the X on the end. Revise these. FUL is only ever spelled with one L, but fully is spelled with two L's. Revise all of these things. You also need to revise prefixes and suffixes because these are the words, the little building blocks that are used to form English words. Revise all of these. If you're a teacher preparing a student, your dictionary will have them in. You can find lists of the suffixes online. They're in the Collins Learner's Illustrated Dictionary. They're in this very handy little book, Spell Like a Champion, available from Amazon. They're all in there. Revise them. Help students understand what they mean and how they are bolted onto the beginning of words to change the meaning. Here's just some examples. Remember that you can have double suffixes. Also, we need to be revising what we call combining forms, the Greek and Latin root words that are still used in the language to create new words. Some dictionaries label them prefix or suffix so students understand how they're used more easily, but they are slightly different. Again, lots and lots of them in here. Root forms, combining forms, are words like this. Aero from Greek meaning air, astro also from Greek meaning star, cent from Latin meaning 100, milli from Latin meaning 1,000. So there are lots and lots that we find at the beginning of words. Aqua meaning water, but we also find them at the ends of words. Scope meaning look at in microscope, telescope, stethoscope. Graph, there are hundreds of these. Revise them, learn how they're used. Because if you hear an unusual word in a competition the chances are it's got a root word in it that you'll be able to recognize. And then with what you know about how we put on prefixes and suffixes, and what you know about the definition and where the word comes from, you've got very valuable clues to the spelling of the word. So revise these as well. You must revise your homophones. There's no excuse for not revising homophones. They're a huge challenge in English. And I always set them in competitions. I love setting homophones. And as I said, don't assume that they're all going to be really easy, like C. If I say to you, spell C, everybody please type C into the chat box.
Looking for someone, S-E-E, S-E-A.
Yeah, you see, that's a really common one, but you have to know about it. You have to ask, what's the word mean? You've got to say, what does it mean? You could so easily spell the wrong one. So these are fair game, and I've just pulled out some of the harder ones here. Just 3 simple examples to demonstrate that you're going to get them even at a high level. Don't be complacent about homophones. Practice, revise, learn commonly confused words. Don't think they're not going to be included because you're 16 and, or the competition is for 15-year-olds. Don't think they might not put in breathe, breath. Don't think they're not going to do that. You must be revising these words. And there are tips we can be revising to help us remember tricky spellings. So one method is look, say, cover, write, check. Student looks the word up in the dictionary, says it. So I'm going to look up onomatopoeia. I'm going to really look at it long and hard because that's a long word, onomatopoeia, and I'm saying it out loud. I'm covering it up, I'm writing, I'm checking. Look, say, cover, write, check. That's a good way of learning spellings. Break words into syllables and sound them out, and pronounce the silent letters as well. Dictionary. That's another way to help remember words, to help remember spelling. Laboratory. If you're asked to spell laboratory, before you spell it in a competition, say it out broken down to yourself. Laboratory. It will help you not miss out one of the unstressed vowel sounds in the middle of that word, laboratory. Look for patterns and relationships between words. If it's a word you're not familiar with, is there something in it that you are familiar with that will help you with the spelling? Minuscule. It's got a bit of minute in it, minute in it. Muscle has got a bit of muscular. Muscular's got a bit of muscle in it. Look for prefixes, suffixes, and combining forms. Anti-development is anti plus develop plus ment. So we've got a combining form, and we've got a word we're familiar with, and we've got a suffix at the end. And the same with super, absorbent, and interchangeableness. Inter, combining form. Change is our core word. Able, suffix, ness, suffix. So think about how words are made up from their component parts. Look for words within words. This is particularly helpful when you're thinking about some of the tricky silent letters. So govern in government. Now in government, the N is silent, but it's not in govern. So that can be helpful. So look for words within words. Learn letter combinations. Learn all of the words ending O-U-G-H, where the GH represents the sound f, or the GH is silent. Learn all the words ending GHT, O-U-R. And use mnemonics. This is where it comes down to understanding how each individual student, how we as individuals learn. I find mnemonics really useful for spelling. I'm always confusing stationery, meaning still, and stationery, meaning pens and paper. So I've made up this little mnemonic. There's a pen in stationery to remind me that pens and paper has got an E in it, because there's also an E in pen. So we can make up these little phrases that help us. If you look at the first one, what is the first one a mnemonic for? Big elephants are useful to Indians for unloading logs. What is that a mnemonic for? What word does that help you spell? Look
Looking
at the
for
first
answers.
letters. Look at the first letters.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely. What about the next one? Betty eats cakes and uses 7 eggs. My daughter's friend Rosie gave me that. Rosie's dyslexic, and that's one she learned to help her with her spelling. Because absolutely, absolutely. And then if we look at, I always visit my friend on Friday. FRI in Friday reminds us that it's FRI in friend. So rather than FREIND. So these are most meaningful when students make them up for their own spelling blind spots, but they're really powerful if you make them for yourself. Right, we're nearly out of time, so I'm just going to finish by saying make sure you know the competition rules. Make sure you know which dictionary is being used in the competition, and if you can use it for your preparation. Don't assume that all dictionaries are the same. Make sure you know what the rule is on alternative spelling forms. Are American spelling variants accepted? Are British spellings accepted? Make sure you're familiar with how the dictionary lists word origins. Make sure you know what pronunciation is going to be used in the competition. If it's in India, is it going to be a well-educated Indian accent? They're not shipping somebody in from the UK or the US, are they? Make sure you know that, because you want to prepare your students. Make sure they can ask for the questions. Can they use pencil and paper to jot spellings down before saying them? Do contestants have to follow the say it, spell it, say it convention? So I would say, okay, Shrikant, your word is happy. And Shrikant has to say happy. Happy, happy. That's what they're looking for. Is that a convention competitors have to follow? Do contestants have a limited time in which to spell, in which case practice? Make sure you know how the competitions run. Not all competitions are knockouts. Read any rules the organisers provide, and good practice. Speak slowly and clearly. It's okay to pause in the middle of a spelling, but do not go back to the beginning and start again. So your word, Elaine, is happy. Happy. That's okay. Happy. That's not okay, because you've repeated the letters and you've therefore spelled the word incorrectly. Be really careful with that. Listen carefully to the word announcer. I was adjudicating a competition in St. Lucia, and a little boy came in, young man came in, 11 years old, uber confident. He was going to nail this. He was so confident he didn't listen to the announcer, and he got nearly every word wrong. You must listen to the word announcer. And you must also speak slowly and clearly. I've been in competitions where I've not heard what the competitor has spelled, and I've had to give it wrong because I couldn't hear it. Practice techniques for relaxing, deep breathing, bit of yoga. And if you're at all unsure about the word, you must ask for it to be repeated and for the definition. Great. I'll leave you with all of this. Are there any questions? So at the end here are some ideas for word games that you can use in the classroom or with your children at home. Spelling in the classroom, get students to read widely and for pleasure. It's the single best way of learning new words for spelling competitions. Use a dictionary and use it properly to actually check spelling. Make children look in their dictionary and use it. Give students vocabulary building exercises that allow them to discover words. Don't give them lists to learn. Give them interesting passages to read with funny and unusual words in. That's a much better way of learning vocabulary. Give them spelling tests, make them check their own answers in the dictionary, and use the activity sheets. Any questions?
Yes, Elaine. Someone is asking if you could suggest an app or a dictionary that is that would be rather really helpful for this spelling bee contest.
This available at 340 something rupees, Amazon.in. It's got all of the spelling rules in. It's got help on why we misspell. It's got lists of words that are commonly misspelled. It's got practice exercises in. It's got lots and lots of mnemonics, so little phrases to help you remember spellings. It's got some information on where words come from, although not as much as we've done today. It's got prefixes, suffixes, combining forms. Here we go: poly, port, hedron, and as I say, lots and lots of puzzles and exercises. So I strongly recommend this as being a good source of practice for spelling skills.
Thank you for that. The second question is from Ms. Shoma Sarkar. Her question is, what age should we begin training children for spelling bee?
As soon as they start to learn to read. It all starts with phonics in KG or grade 1.
Okay. Next question is, there are quite a few people talking about asking if this book is available on Kindle. So any thoughts?
I don't know, I'd have to check. I think there's a Kindle edition in the UK. I didn't see a Kindle edition on Amazon India this morning, but there might be.
Okay. And there is a teacher requesting you to share again some of the last slides. I think this teacher could revisit the Facebook live page later. But then again, coming back to questions. Someone is asking you to share the name of the book again, if you could please.
It's called Spell Like a Champion.
Spell Like a Champion. Okay.
Spell Like a Champion. Your practical guide to spelling success. And don't forget, we'll be sharing this full presentation so you can use it as a manual on the Collins India Home Learning website, and the URL is there at the bottom of that slide.
Yes. And the next question is, how can we train the kids to learn and listen? It's from Cherry Joe. How can we train the kids to learn and listen? I don't know if this is appropriate for this topic, however. Yes.
That's such a broad topic. I mean, you have to start with them when they're really little.
Okay, there is another question. I see this question too is out of the topic. However, I just try to ask it, and if you like, you can answer it. How can we teach our children with some activity, as in homonyms or homophones, apart from using a dictionary? Any thoughts?
I'm sure there are activities around homophones in the dictionary worksheets that we've got on the home learning site. Yes. This has got lots of activities for homophones in it, and also Collins India publish books on phonics and spelling, and there is a course that you publish, Fun with, I can't remember what it's called. It's the spelling one that's got several levels in it. Goes up to level 7. That's got a lot of exercises and activities in around homophones and commonly confused words. So there are lots of activities in dictionary activity sheets, books like this, and the spelling. Can you remember what that course is, Shrikant? It's the one with the different colours. So one covers yellow, one's red, one's green, one's blue.
One second. Yeah, it's phonics and spellings, I think.
Phonics and spelling, yes.
So
that also is full of activities around homophones.
The next question is from Zoom. Can you suggest ideas for improving vocabulary, like from where to start?
Read for pleasure. That's the simplest single most effective way of learning more vocabulary. It's been estimated that everybody has to encounter a word 7 times before it becomes an active part of their vocabulary. And the best way, the most efficient way of doing that is reading, and reading for pleasure.
I think we are out of time, and therefore we just take this last one question, Elaine. The question is, how can I assess how my students are progressing? How should the instruction be adjusted for students with a learning problem in the area of spellings and pronunciation?
Well, students who are struggling with spelling and pronunciation, this is where the more interesting spelling tips come in. So my daughter's friend Rosie, who is dyslexic and did brilliantly at university, found that mnemonics, those little phrases, were her clue to unlocking spelling. Because if you said to her beautiful, she'd write it down, it'd be completely wrong. If you said to her beautiful, and she thought Betty eats cakes, beautiful, and she thought big elephants are useful to Indians for unloading logs, she'd get it right. So I think with children who are struggling, the skills side of things, that's where it's really helpful. Don't try and get them to memorize difficult spellings. Break words down for them. Help them really understand how prefixes and suffixes are used. Help them to really practice and master the spelling rules. Help them to really see how you can take a word like change and you can put something on the beginning and something on the end and something on both ends and possibly something else on the beginning or on the end, and change the words. Use cards. Put change on a card and then enter at the beginning, enter on another card, and ABLE at the end, and get children to play around, seeing which cards can marry up or sit with other cards to form words. I think with children who are struggling and children who need extra support for whatever reason, it's really focusing on the skills, because all of that metacognitive stuff, learning skills, learning how to apply skills, that is valuable for everybody, regardless of where they are in the class. They may be top of the class, they may be bottom of the class, but they're all going to benefit from metacognitive skills and learning to apply them. Struggling students focus on all the skills stuff that we've got here. So all of this 2.1, so all of this, practice, look, say, cover, write, check, break words down into syllables, look for patterns, look for word formations, combining forms, look for words within words, teach in patterns, try and help children learn in patterns, use these mnemonics tailored to the child. All of these are skills that we can taught and we can help children to apply.
Thank you so much.
Of ability and background.
Thank you so much, Elaine. To all the participants who requested for the name of the book, I shall repeat the name of the book again. The name of the book is Fun with Phonics and Spellings, to help your students improve phonics and their spellings. If you would like to have a copy of the book, please get in touch with the head of your department. They'll get in touch again with a sales colleague. So that is the answer to your questions on Facebook regarding the name of the book. Now, on behalf of Collins Learning and all the 530 odd participants here, I would like to thank Elaine for taking her time off and encouraging all the children as well as the teachers and guiding us into understanding how to go about with this wonderful word game. Thank you so much, Elaine.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Good luck, everybody.